Everybody. We're going to get this meeting started. My name is Alfredo Quintero. I am the Public Works Director for the town of Cutler Bay. As a reminder, this is a public meeting and it will be recorded starting right now. So we are here today for the Franjo Road Complete Streets project. And just to define what a complete street is, it is a project that improves safety, mobility, and capacity for the four modes of travel, which are pedestrian, bicycle, vehicular, transit, regardless of a person's age or physical ability. This project is a joint participation agreement between Miami-Dade County and the town of Cutler Bay. Miami-Dade County is contributing nearly $9 million from their roadway impact fees, and the remainder of the project cost will be funded by the town's portion of the People's Transportation Plan for the construction enhancements and the CEI portion of the project management. It is my opinion that we have been able to secure funding for this project in record time. I think it's just 4 years ago, we completed our last complete street project in 2016, and we are now designing Franjo Road. This is a testament of the hard work and dedication of all the town staff and all our elected officials. So I want to give a special thanks and recognition to the following elected officials whom have worked behind the scenes to make this project possible, beginning with our new Miami-Dade County Mayor, Daniela Levine Cava, who has always supported Cutler Bay and sponsored this project. Also, Miami-Dade County Commissioner Dennis Moss for co-sponsoring the project. I want to give a very special thanks to our town council, our very own Mayor Tim Mirba, who is joining us, our ex-Vice Mayor, Suellen Loisel, our new Vice Mayor, Michael Callahan, who I see is also joining us, our council member, Robert B.J. Duncan, whom is also joining us, and our council member, Roger Correa. I want to give a big special thanks to our town manager, Rafael Casals, for all his support. He has always pushed us harder to achieve more and always go above and beyond. And I want to thank all the county staff for working with us to make this project possible. Another special thanks to all our town staff and the current project team. I want to introduce my right-hand man, Yanir Vega, my stormwater utility manager. He's a key member of this project team. And our consultants, Stantec Engineering, who this is the third time they team up with us for our third complete street project. As you know, we did Old Cutler Road first, and then we did Caribbean Boulevard. And now in our short history, we are doing Franjo Road. So we have currently completed the survey for the entire quarter, and we are now beginning the design phase. The design is in its infancy, so we are going to study the entire corridor and see what safety elements can be placed at key intersections to make this a successful project. So we have a few elected officials attending, and I'm going to hand it over to Mayor Mirbot for some brief comments. So Mayor Mirbot, if you're unmuted, you may.
All right. Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, Alfredo, thank you very much. First I want to go ahead and say thank you to our newly elected mayor, Daniela Levine Cava, and the county and our team, Sean and Maria and all of them for helping to get this project moving forward. This is no small project. It's $8.5 million project. The county is decided to go ahead and improve the streets within Cutler Bay. And as you know, we've already done a great job in the past of improving streets along Old Cutler and Caribbean Boulevard. They're actually award-winning projects, and I'm sure that this one is going to be just as nice. Franjo has needed some improvements for a long time, and it really needs to go ahead and be updated, and the capacity needs to be increased. And again, don't want to scare anybody saying a capacity that we're not going to widen the roads anywhere and add additional lanes, but hopefully the plans are to make it easier to traverse with, especially with bus pullouts and curbing and other things like that. It's basically a beautification project. We've been talking about the need for this for a long time, and I really have to commend not only our staff and the county for bringing this project home to us. So really excited, and guys are doing a great job. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the public involvement on this.
Thank you, Mayor Mirbot. So without further ado, I'm going to now introduce our engineer of records, Sean Compel. He's going to give you a PowerPoint presentation for the Franjo Road project. So Sean, whenever you're ready, please commence.
Great. Thank you, Alfredo. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Look forward to a nice presentation tonight and a great project ahead. I will start out with a couple of items. As Alfredo said, the meeting is being recorded. So we'll have the benefit of viewing it later as needed. I will also ask that everyone remain muted. And what we'll do is we will take questions at the end. So we'll make sure we have plenty of time to answer any and all questions. For the question period, there you could do one of two things. If you are muted, you can raise your hand, the raise hand function. And with that, I can unmute you and you can ask the question. If not, you could also type your question into the chat, and we will take those and make sure we answer all of those questions as well. So either way will be acceptable. So with that, we'll get started, run through a little bit of our presentation. Started with the outline just to mention where we're headed tonight. So we went through our introductions. We'll talk a little bit about the project limits. We'll briefly go over similar projects that Alfredo alluded to earlier. We'll look at the existing conditions that'll allow us to then discuss the project features. And we'll end with any comments and questions that we may have. So the project corridor, you'll see the map here. It's all of Franjo Road. So that's extending from the north limits of the town, Southwest 184th Street, all the way down to Old Cutler Road. It's about 8,700 feet. You will see the budget off to the side, of which most of which the county has been generous enough to contribute. And it puts the total project budget at about $10.69 million. Now, I've included a brief slide here just about the success story, and Alfredo made mention to it, as did Mayor Mirbot. You know, this successful partnership, we've done this before. It's a great partnership with Miami-Dade County, the town of Cutler Bay, and Stantec as the designers. So we did successfully complete Old Cutler Road and Caribbean Boulevard, both of which were joint participation agreements with the county. So obviously Old Cutler is a little bit further in the past. Caribbean was more recent. Caribbean is what Franjo will be modeled more after, seeing as it's a residential area, on-street bike lanes and other facilities. So I'd certainly encourage you to visit that street if you haven't already, and understand that that's ultimately what we're looking at here with Franjo Road. So we'll go through just some existing conditions. We tried to include a photographic log of some of the conditions we've observed and that we're looking to improve upon as part of the project. So one of those being the ADA accessibility. The existing ramps, they are there obviously, but some of them may not be exactly up to code. So we'll be making sure we have the truncated domes. We'll make sure that the slopes are acceptable at all intersections. Another common item we see is the rutting along the edge of the road. This location in particular, you can see the ADA ramp is just past it. So this is created by the vehicles, kind of coming off the road and creating those dips, and it does present a very unsafe condition. By curbing the road, we'll be solving the rutting problems and providing a safe corridor for all parties. The bus shelters. So you'll see this bus shelter in the picture here. There are about 10 of these. These are the prefabricated Miami-Dade County bus shelters. We will be replacing these with the town of Cutler Bay, the standard shelters that we've used throughout, which we'll look at in a little more detail later, all to be fully ADA compliant, of course. The street lighting. So what we see there, the street lighting on there is, it is a little sporadic. So it creates a little bit of a safety concern when you don't have a uniform spread of the light. And those poles are functional, but not necessarily decorative. So they're standard concrete poles with an overhead service. What we'll be doing is new decorative poles, and all of those lines will be buried, so you won't see them, and it'll provide more reliability for storm and power outages. A little more of the swale conditions that we see is some of the rutting at the edges, which leads to ponding and some drainage issues, as well as unpaved driveway approaches. So as part of the project, we'll be providing continuous curb and gutter, and also all new driveway approaches, that being from the back of the curb over to the front of the sidewalk, will all be completed uniformly, as we did on Caribbean, with all new concrete. And again, another existing condition, this one was captured with the sitting water. So it is common along there to see, rough edges of the road. The curb will help define the road and make for a much safer condition for all. Sidewalks. This is a relatively, typical portion, especially next to tree, where you see the tree root damage. So we will be replacing all of these flags. We will undertake some root pruning if we need to, and we will provide root barriers as well if needed. This, again, damaged sidewalk, this is probably maybe not the result of the tree damage, but possibly vehicles driving in areas that shouldn't. So you see the cracks. So both with the curbs will help that condition, and all of these will be replaced. Here again is some of the driveway ponding we experience. So when we replace the driveways using the county standard, they will have the tapered edges that will help with vehicles coming in and out of the driveways and preventing some of the conditions that you see here. And again, sometimes these are referred to as hairline cracks. So they may not necessarily be a tripping hazard, but they are something we're going to address. The town's approach, and we've certainly been a part of that, is to address everything at once. We don't want to have to come back here. We want to tackle all of these conditions at the same time. And then, so we're looking at crosswalks as well, this one being a signalized crosswalk. So what you can tell here is the visibility of the crosswalk is a little poor. So this would be a good candidate. We want to make sure that we'd probably do the concrete crosswalk here, which helps with the visibility, fresh striping, obviously, and make sure that there's appropriate countdown timers for the crosswalk itself. So we'll talk about project features for a little bit, and we'll show the typical section next. So these are the features that we'll be looking at. It will remain a 2-lane road. We will look at possible turn lanes at select intersections where possible and where space permits. We'll include traffic calming measures. And I should say that a lot of times people think of traffic calming just as a concrete item like a median or a roundabout, but in reality, so many of these elements become traffic calming measures, whether it's even the curbing helps to contain vehicles and define the roadway. The landscaping helps to slow things down. The decorative items along the way, even the concrete crosswalks, overall have a calming effect. So it is more than just a concrete item. As we said, curbing throughout, so continuous type F curb and gutter along each side of the road. That will help to eliminate all that driveway ponding. Along with that is a continuous drainage system. So we're gonna have exfiltration trenches sized appropriately for the entire corridor. As we said, we'll get rid of all those rutted swales. And then landscaping, we'll talk a little bit more later in the presentation about the preservation of the existing character. And that is important here. It's primarily a residential corridor, other than some areas up at 184th and down at Old Cutler Road. So we want to preserve that. We want to, similar to Caribbean, you want to keep the same feel that you see there today. The lighting levels, again, they'll be appropriate for residential. So same criteria as we used on Caribbean Boulevard. Same light styles, same light levels, appropriate for residential. And then bus shelters. So we talked about the 10 bus shelters. We will also include those pull-out bus bays. We'll look at a typical one of those, which also have a lot of safety benefits to them. The 4-foot wide bike lanes on either side of the road, and like we said, possible turn lanes at key intersections. So this graphic is just demonstrating the typical section, and I apologize, you may not be able to read the small print on the bottom, but what it outlines is what we have on Franjo, which is a 70-foot right-of-way. Caribbean was a little bit wider. That was an 80-foot right-of-way generally. Ours being 70 feet does allow for the 11-foot vehicular travel lanes, the 4-foot paved bike lane, 2-foot wide curb and gutter on each side, the 13-foot swale with plantings along the way, and then the 5-foot wide sidewalk on either side. And then the call out there, item F, would be your drainage trenches. So depending on where existing utilities are today, we would place that most likely under one of the roadway gutters on either side. So we'll talk a little bit about Roundabout, which is typically what people think of when they hear traffic calming. And as we know, one location we're looking at that has been a problem is Cutler Ridge Drive. So that's the primary location where we may be able to use the Roundabout. This information comes from FDOT, so it's been well documented that they are safer. There's less crashes and much less serious crashes is a lot of it. And it's also, for complete streets, is very important because it really helps to ensure smooth flow for all modes of transportation. So the cyclists and the pedestrians can navigate through easily. They are, sometimes a misconception, they're not always a good thing. Sometimes they can slow traffic down. So it does have to be studied to make sure that it's going to improve the capacity, improve the flow. And when used correctly, you see there the time savings are important. Along with that, they're environmentally friendly, so you're not waiting, for extra time at a red light and sitting and contributing to pollution. It's a good opportunity for landscaping. So like you'll see in Caribbean and even Old Cutler, we were able to do some really nice plantings in there. And they'll take less time than you would have to take to make a left turn at an intersection, let's say. You do see the savings in costs. So you don't have an electric bill for running the signal. You don't have the maintenance that comes with the signal, whether it's the bulbs burning out or some sort of malfunction. And of course, they'll always work even in a power outage. So the key intersections that we've noted here, there's 3 of them that are signalized, of course. So 184th Street is an existing signal, Caribbean Boulevard is existing, and Old Cutler Road is existing. So those are all signalized, that will remain signalized. We will make sure that the upgrades, if there are upgrades, we will accommodate those, but for the most part, those are fairly new and should be in good working order. We'd have to tie into it appropriately and make sure that the pedestrian crossings are safe. This aerial that we're looking at here is the Gulfstream intersection. We do have to look at that one a little more to see what makes sense there, whether it is a turn lane or a potential reconfiguration. And then again, the other ones we'll have to look at, such as 186th Street, which could benefit from a dedicated left turn lane, should space requirements allow it. So looking at some of the other components and more of the aesthetics of it, picture here is the town's adopted bus shelter. So you'll see them on Caribbean Boulevard. You also see them at key areas throughout town with the standing seam metal roof, the coral rock cladded columns, the bench, the trash can. So these, as they exist, are ADA compliant. What we'll show you on the next slide is some considerations we've given to perhaps make it a little more user-friendly. So what this is demonstrating is you still have the required boarding and lighting area is required by ADA code, but that 30-inch by 48-inch clear floor space could potentially move into and be next to the column and have a little bit of a shorter bench to be able to accommodate everybody. Of course, we'll have there shown as the trash can and the bike rack lock for each shelter. And then along with those, we will look at appropriate locations for the bus pullout bays. So this one taken was on Caribbean, not too far from the turnpike. You can see it complements the bus shelter. It's a good way for the bus to pull off the road, lets traffic continue flowing. You're not asking someone to get out and a bike might be coming behind, or at certain areas where you have more ridership, cars might try to get around them and someone might be trying to cross in front of the bus. So it's a nice feature to have, especially for your higher use areas. Right now, what we're considering is Bel Air Park to have one, and Franjo Park, and we'll continue to look at good options for those. So with the 4-foot wide bike lanes, this is a typical bike lane. You'll see the solid stripe line along with the bike symbol and the arrow. And then along with each of those, you'll get the signage that labels it as a bike lane. So those will be sporadically placed as needed throughout the corridor on both sides of the road. And then a little bit about the landscape design. So one important thing, and we'll work with our landscape architects to certainly maintain as much of the tree canopy as possible, which is both, there are some trees and some palms. Native species will be very important. And trying to match and align tree heights to fill in the gaps. One thing we did with Caribbean as well is to try to encourage shade tree planting behind the sidewalk. So what's nice to see is when you do get this brand new road, you see a lot of pride, and a lot of the residents, want to improve behind the sidewalk. And something that is always good to do is promote the shade trees so that you capture the shade behind the sidewalk as well as in front, and makes for a better experience. In addition to with the bus shelters, as we did with Caribbean, we'll probably add a little extra landscaping around them just to accentuate them a little more. And then all of those considerations, keeping safe visibility in mind. And that's visibility both for vehicles to see pedestrians to see cyclists. So it's not just it's the shrub height, but also the caliber and the type of the tree. Maybe some trees need to be taller to get out of the view path. And so some of what we talked about with the low maintenance requirements, those are all part of the Florida friendly landscaping selection. So we will, again, work with the landscape architect to pick the right plant palette that's suitable for the temperature, suitable for the weather, the wet season, dry season. We will not be placing irrigation, so the idea is get the plants established, and after that they can survive on their own, keeping in mind pest and disease resistant trees as well. So they've provided a few typical species here that we consider, everything from the sable palm, which is very common, to the ground cover that you see in the bottom left, and then some of the other typical trees, whether orange geiger or silver buttonwood, a few different types. So we mentioned filling the gaps. You can see the photos on the bottom have a little bit more canopy shown in them, but you still want to fill in the gaps with various amounts of plant material. So that's what they'll be looking for, good opportunities to do that. A little more of the aesthetics. So again, this view is of Caribbean Boulevard, and we use this photo to accentuate the crosswalk. So we will be doing similar colored crosswalks. It helps, again, to give better definition to that component. You'll see the light pole off to the right. That is the same type of light pole that we'll be proposing for Franjo Road. And then the street furniture. So you see the typical bench that will be used. Black frame, so common to these items, you'll see the black powder coated element to them, very durable. The trash receptacles, again, basically the town standard that we've used throughout. We've used them at all the bus shelters, also durable. and the bike rack. So we'll have one bike rack at least one bike rack at each bus shelter, and then at other potential locations as we see fit. So the lighting design, again, they will be basically equally spaced, depending on existing utilities and other conflicts. Similar poles to what you see in the photo there, the black 39-foot tall is most likely the size they'll be, black aluminum, and energy efficient as well. So we provided this as our before photo, so gives you a good clear view of the existing conditions. 5-foot sidewalk on each side, paved asphalt road, driveway approaches on each side, and some royal palms. And then what we've added to it would be the finished product. So complementing the royal palms with new ones, you'll see the curb and gutter on either side, the bike lanes, and the new driveway approaches. And with that, that's overall our presentation as far as the information goes. We do thank you for your time. Definitely look forward to a successful project. So with that, we will turn it over to any questions or comments. And if I will do my best here, as I see hand raised, I can unmute.
Thank you, Sean. That was a very wonderful presentation. So now we're open to comments and questions. I saw that a resident, I think by the initials of LR, posted a comment: bus benches need to be sleep proof. Leo, I guess for Leo, what we could certainly look at that. I believe the newer bench that is proposed in the floor plan has been shrunken a little bit to now accommodate a wheelchair between the supporting columns of the shelter. So that's something that we could look at. And also we could also put a bar in the middle of, order a bus bench that has a bar in the middle as well. Just a couple of more facts or regarding this project. The entire roadway corridor is going to be the driving portion is going to be rebuilt from the ground up. So it's going to be, you're going to be seeing the base, the sub base, that's all going to be redone. Then it's going to be primed. Then it's going to take the first layer of asphalt. Once the entire project is done, we will then apply a final layer at the very end of the project, similar to what we did on Caribbean and Old Cutler. For the scheduling portion, as I mentioned before, we are in the infancy phase of the design. The design is going to take approximately a year to produce. It's going to go through several revision phases. It's going to go through a 30%, a 60%, a 90%, and finally 100%. This is all tentative, of course. We will do another presentation showing the entire corridor, the conceptual design, probably by around the 90% revision. So we will invite everybody to attend that meeting. Hopefully it'll be a meeting that we could attend in person, as I like to have the boards printed out of the entire corridor so that everybody can see exactly where their house is and see the improvements in front of their house. The permitting process and procurement process is possibly going to take between 6 to 8 months. Our goal is to start construction, the groundbreaking, in the summer of 2022. I specifically like to always start projects in the summer because it reduces traffic congestion due to school being in session. We will probably start the project from the north end, since there is a private school, Holy Rosary, at that end. So our goal will be to start the project summer 2022 so that we could at least get that first segment done, and there'll be minimal traffic congestion since it is the summer. There's a couple of businesses in the corridor. We will also work with those businesses to make sure that they always have access to their parking lots. There's In the north end, we do have the Catholic church and the school. We also have Mayor McDougal's business. There's also a little shopping center, I believe has a barber shop and a little restaurant. So we'll work with all those business owners to make sure that they always have access to their businesses during the construction phase. We'll do our very best providing them those FDOT blue signs for each business, letting the residents know that they're open for business. There's also a couple of businesses at the south end. I believe we have the 2 gas stations, the Shell and the Mobile. I believe it's a Mobile. And I think there's also next to Franjo Park, a veterinary clinic, an animal clinic. So we'll work with them as well. And with that, if there's any more comments, please.
Alfredo,
yes.
I believe I have Councilmember BJ Duncan with his hand raised, and then we have a question from Tatiana, and then we have Daniel Canto also with his hand raised.
All right, perfect. So we'll take the questions one at a time. So you mentioned BJ Duncan first, so if you can unmute Councilmember Duncan, Sean.
Yeah, you should be unmuted.
Yes, I am unmuted. I just want to say thank you all for this lovely presentation. It's been a long time coming, and I know that the town council, as well as all the residents, especially the ones that live on Franjo, are very excited about the changes that are going to be coming with this project. One thing that I would say that I would recommend, at least, and I know you guys have, but I just want to put it out there on the record, a dedicated left turn lane at the intersection of Caribbean, if at all possible, with whatever the physical limitations of the space are. We have traffic that gets backed up all the time in the morning and in the evenings when people are coming back home, because you have people waiting for the through traffic to go through while they're trying to turn left. So I would definitely recommend, if at all possible, that intersection. And then you had mentioned earlier the one at 186th also gets backed up for the very same reason. So those are the 2 biggest concerns beyond the Cutler Ridge Boulevard intersection that residents have, or at least that they've brought to my attention. And beyond that, I'm very excited for this project to get going. And fun side note, in this lovely picture here that kind of shows the after, my house and my wife's car is in it. So
There you go.
So thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Alfredo, we now have a question from Tatiana, and let's see if we can unmute her, or I can just read the question. She posted it on the chat.
I unmuted her. Let's see if she is still on there. There we go. She's unmuted.
Hi guys, thank you for doing this. So this project is happening right around the corner from me. So like BJ said, I am super excited about it. So a few questions. So the first one was about benches. I've noticed that we have benches in some really random spaces around town. So I just wanted to put it in your radar that, I support the benches in the bus stops and areas where people really do congregate, but keep them to a minimum, because I don't think people use. I have not seen people use them, and I walk and run a lot around the town. So just be wise about where you put them. Then I had a question about the lighting. Is this lighting dark sky friendly? Are we trying to light the places that need to be lit, but not more than that? If you guys know what dark sky friendly is, perhaps I'm assuming you do.
Yes, and not to say that it's completely dark sky friendly, but it is, let's say, it is scaled down to the appropriate level. So a lot of it's LED, but it has to meet the minimum requirements for it being a county road and certain uniformities. But it also does include shields to make sure that the light is directed in the right areas. It's not being, directed back to the homes. So it is a managed and a planned type of lighting, if that helps to answer the question.
Thank you. Yes, to the extent that you can continue to incorporate, that's one of the features that I've appreciated a lot from living here. It's having some still dark skies that are protected around here, that will be fantastic. And then the next one, my final question is related to the bike lanes. I do bike a lot around here. That's one of the other benefits of this town, that we have access to some really nice biking trails. And some of this, at least there are a few places where it's really hard to like share a road with cars, but I do like this idea. Is there a way to like do a little bit of a separated lane though, like or at least in certain places where we know that just sharing the road with traffic that goes 40 miles per hour, it's real scary. And are there opportunities to incorporate some of those separated bike lanes in this effort?
So it is something we looked at and we can look at. It is a little challenging because of the available right-of-way. That sometimes if we look at the separation, then it would go right through all of the existing trees. You know, if we picked a side, it would take out a bunch of trees. So it is finding that balance between trees, you know, the drainage challenges. There's always drainage challenges if there is a separator. So it's not out of the question to look at it, especially at key areas. But for the most part, to minimize impact, I would say most of it's going to remain as on-street bike lanes. Yeah.
Then she had a comment in regards to the benches, just to chime in on the benches that you've seen sporadically throughout town. Those are actual rest stops. There are some on Old Cutler. There are some around the Cutler Bay Middle School. I believe we might have a couple on Caribbean, maybe that serve twofold at some of the key intersections. But we will limit the benches. Maybe around that brick wall, we might add a couple of benches, that red brick wall. Regarding the lighting, again, we have to follow Miami-Dade County standards. They do have a foot candle, a minimum foot candle requirement that needs to be met. But it's gonna have the same look and feel as on Caribbean. So if you drive Caribbean, you'll pretty much see the illumination levels that you will experience on Franjo Road.
Perfect. Alfredo, we have next Daniel Canto, who has his hand raised.
Okay, if we could unmute Daniel Canto.
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to answer my question. I just the council member addressed what I was going to bring up, which was the intersection on the Caribbean. Lately, it's been pretty frustrating. You know, we get blocked up. I live about 5 blocks away. We get we have to wait through like 2 red lights just to get through. I would hate to see all the effort that everyone's put into this project and then to just see that continue throughout after that. And it could possibly be a safety issue with the bike lanes being established. And then as cars become impatient, they will start turning and avoiding that person that's trying to turn and might not see a cyclist going down those lanes now that there is a space. I know that there's those mature royal palms around the area and the landscaping in that area. I don't know if that's a consideration of scaling it back to add that middle lane.
Yes, and we'll have to look at all of that to see how to also carry the bike safely through there. But I'm glad you bring that up, that you both did, about the turn lanes, because now we'll make sure we take a good look at that.
Other than that, thank you.
Great.
That's exactly why we have these public meetings, to hear your concerns and hopefully address them. Alfredo, I have Mayor Tim here, but with his hand raised.
Okay, mute him.
There you go. Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. Just want to make two comments. One of the things that Tatiana mentioned was the infrequent use of some of the bus stops. And, Dade County is working on a better bus project. We're already looking at the number of bus stops, and they've got a complete redesign of the bus system, which is less stops, but more frequent buses, and which is longer wait times. And so I'm sure our town will be coordinating with the county on where the new Better Bus Project stops are to be located. So maybe some of those will be eliminated. And the other thing is, BJ, one thing you didn't mention is when we did this improvements on Caribbean, the average home value went up 10 to 15% just because of roadway improvements. So you guys are welcome. That's all I got. Thanks again, guys. Great project.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfredo, I have Maggie with a question. Let's see if we're going to mute her. If not, I can read her question from the chat.
All right, Sean, can you unmute Maggie, please?
Yes.
Hello, thank you so much for the presentation and for the planned improvements. I think that's going to be wonderful. Just a question. I know you're discussing maintaining as much of the current landscaping as possible, but if trees do need to be removed, in particular, we have two extremely large trees right out front of our property, right in between the sidewalk and the roadway. If there is trees that are going to have to be come down, what is the notification procedure for that? How does that kind of move forward in the planning?
Sure, and I will say we will definitely make sure, of course, to preserve everything that we can, everything within the safety design. We're now starting with the master planning where we will lay out the road elements. We'll have another public meeting to share that master plan. And especially at that time, we should know or have a pretty good idea of what impacts there are. And we'll do a similar type presentation. As Alfredo said, hopefully there's advantages to having it in person because we can really look at specific, addresses and concerns. So hopefully that, depending when it happens, hopefully it can be in person. That'll be definitely be the next opportunity when we're ready to look at that. And then, depending on what is determined, if there are some trees that have to go, which is always possible, they are mitigated. So we always have to plant more than we're taking out. That's something that will happen. So certainly stay tuned and be part of the process, and we'll be in communication regarding more specifics.
Understood. And then I do have one additional question. With the new curbs and the drainage, will that negate the need for the large drain covers that are in the middle of some of the driveways between the road and the sidewalks? Are those now going away because there will be curbside drainage?
Generally speaking, I would say yes, because everything will be replaced. So if it is a drain, then chances are that would be, we don't know exactly where the new drainage will go because it will depend on everything, all the utilities that are already underground.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see, but I would say generally speaking, the existing system would go away and will hopefully be in a more optimized location.
Understood. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
And I just want to add to her first question regarding the tree mitigation on Caribbean Boulevard. There were certain trees that had to be removed, and we were able to relocate some of those trees to other corridors. We actually, the two oak trees that you see on the traffic circles, those were relocated oak trees. We were able to save several royal palms, and we're able to relocate them to other parks, Linear Park along 97th Avenue, Blue Heron Park. We also were able to relocate some of those royal palms along Franjo Road. So we'll do everything to at least preserve the existing trees by relocating them if they need to be removed.
That's wonderful to hear, because they are beautiful trees, but they are massive. So hearing the spacing that we're talking about needing, it's certainly a possibility. So it's good to know there are other options. Thank you so much.
Here, do we have any more questions on queue? You're muted. You're muted. John, unmute your ear. Yanir, do you hear us? Do we have any other questions on queue, or we're good?
I don't have anybody else with their hand raised, and I don't have any questions in the chat either.
Okay. So if there are no more questions or comments, please feel free to, if you're a resident, to let your neighbors know that this meeting has been recorded. And once we gather it, we will post it on our website, and they'll be able to see it on our website in a future date. And if you have any further questions or concerns, you can contact me, the Public Works Director for Cutler Bay, Alfredo Quintero. My name and number are on our town website. We will also post this PowerPoint presentation on our website, and you'll also have my name and number at the end of the PowerPoint, as well as our consultant, Stantec, and Sean. So if those are all the questions, I want to thank everybody for attending. This was a very productive meeting. We got some good comments, some good questions, and we'll look to incorporate some of your concerns into the project. So thank you all very much for attending, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Alfredo.
Y'all have a great night.
Okay. Thank you all.